Okay, so let's keep going with our study of the brain. Okay, so what I think we might do is start looking at the brain functions. So what each part of the brain is responsible for doing, what's its job from the bottom up, okay? And then we'll work our way towards the top. So what we might do is look at the midbrain pons and medulla. Okay, so the midbrain pons and medulla, all right? So here is the midbrain, here is the pons, it's like a little bulgy bit, and this is the medulla. Now the medulla deals with things like heart rate and blood pressure and breathing, okay? So very, very basic survival kind of functions. The pons, okay, so again involved in very basic kind of functions, connecting, the midbrain to the medulla. Again, some visceral control, so got him to do with some very basic things like monitoring breathing and those things as well. The midbrain, again, is kind of responsible for the low level kind of functions. So for example, very low level vision, hearing, how we react to that, and and whether we are conscious or unconscious. So both, so the brain stem is made up of these three structures, and they're all very, very basic survival kind of structures, of functions. Breathing, moving, keeping your heart going, reacting to vision, reacting to sounds, that kind of stuff. All right, so let's move on a little bit higher up. The cerebellum, okay, which is across the road from the pons. Now again, we are still kind of looking at basic functions. It's just about controlling your movements, okay? So coordination of body movements. And the cerebellum, it looks a bit like a cauliflower, and it also does have grey matter and white matter, just like the brain. Sometimes it's called the little mini brain. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, so we've done the back end. Let's keep going up. So the diencephalon, it's like if you think of the brain like this. Not really. Let's get my hands around the right way. I'm trying to do it in the camera, but it's not working. Okay, so you have the cerebrum, which is on the top, and you've got like a stalk. Okay, so you've got the diencephalon sitting up the top like a stalk, and then you've got the cerebrum like a helmet. So we're talking about the bulgy bit in the middle. Okay, so this particular part of the brain has three kind of interesting or important parts to know about. The first one is the thalamus. Now, I'm just going to highlight it so you can see it on the picture because there's a lot going on in the picture. See the thalamus there? Okay, that's an important part because all of your sensory information, before it goes anywhere else in the brain, it goes through there. So it's like a kind of a train station. It's like Sydney Central, and then all the other trains go from there. Then you've got the hypothalamus, which is responsible for, fight or flight, or a lot of your hormone release, rage, fear, hunger, that kind of thirst. It's all very basic, driving you to do those things, sexual behaviour, mating. And then we've got the pineal, which sits here, which is different to the pituitary, yeah? Okay, the pineal sits towards the back, the pituitary, it sits off the hypothalamus, okay? So that's just to be aware of that so you don't get the two mixed up, hey? so the hypothalamus, look at it. It is a hardcore, really, really complicated neural structure with lots of different pieces. But for your purposes, you just need to understand these major functions, all right? So fight or flight, you know, you've got your parasympathetic, sympathetic, making sure that your body temperature is right, making you eat, making you drink, making you sleep, and then emotional behaviour, including sexual behaviour. So it's pretty hardcore. Your hypothalamus is the queen of the brain. Not being like politically incorrect or anything, but all right. The pineal gland, as I told you before, sits at the back. Let me just get another. So here it is there, sitting towards the back, and that one is connected to your retina. So your eyes and your cells lining the back of your eye talk to the pineal gland. Okay, they tell the pineal gland if it's light or dark, and then the pineal gland releases something called melatonin. Okay, and you see here, when it's light, your pineal gland doesn't release any melatonin. When it's dark, it's releasing more, and that sets your circadian rhythm. That's why they give people melatonin when they have trouble sleeping. All right, so we've done all those bits. There's a lot. Let's have a look at the cerebrum now, which is the top helmet. Okay, the top helmet over the top of the brainstem and the diencephalon. Okay, so as you can see here, you've got two hemispheres, left and a right hemisphere, and this part here, this gap is called the longitudinal fissure, and then the only thing that connects these two halves is some white matter, which is myelinated axons. Okay, so this is what it looks like here if you cut it like a coronal plane, like that. Can you see me there, like that, coronal plane? So you've got a whole bunch of neurons here, and their axons go all the way over here and vice versa. So the only thing connecting to the two together is the corpus callosum, and that's what it looks like in the sagittal plane. Huh? All right, so let's have a look at the cortex. So this is my highly technical picture here that I drew for you. So we know that this is looking at. So this is our brain diencephalon and brainstem. Okay, we're looking at the top, which is like the helmet. So the helmet itself is divided up into the outer part and the inner part, and the outer part is called the cortex. Okay, and we know that that's where the cell bodies of our neurons live. Okay, so that outer area, okay, is divided into lobes. Okay, and these are all the different lobes. Rostral is towards the caudal is towards the back, so it's posterior, and this is anterior. I don't know why they still use those words, but let's have a look at what all the lobes are responsible for doing. Frontal lobe is, in evolutionary terms, the youngest lobe, and it's got to do with higher order thinking. Okay. Occipital lobe is towards the back, that's vision. Temporal lobe deals with all of smell. It deals with it also deals with auditory information. Okay, language as well. All right, and then the lobe that's left over is it kind of connects, talks between all of the other ones. Okay, so that's all of the different lobes there. You only need to know 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't need to know about this or about that yet, these two little strips yet. Okay, so this limbic system lives in the cerebrum, okay, which is our helmet, and there's an emotional center of our brain, and it's a whole bunch of brain parts that are responsible for emotional memory, okay, so emotion. So that's what you need to think about. Limbic system is about emotion, okay? Now this guy here, hippocampus, he is involved in memory, okay? So hippo, big, campus, uni, okay? So big uni memory, all right? I know you're going to be sick of my tips and tricks. Yeah, so, and there's a hypothalamus is involved, and it's also that. So there's a few little bits and pieces involved in emotional part of our brain. Right, why are we teaching you all this? It's because when you see a patient that has had damage to neurons in their brain, it will display certain symptoms, okay? So if they have damage in their frontal lobe, you can expect certain symptoms. If you have damage in the brainstem, you need to expect certain signs and symptoms. So that's the reason why we're kind of teaching you about the general functions of all the part of the brain. Okay,